While the exact meaning of the sever was unclear to Yaakov, it was quite clear to the brothers. To them, this was a message from God, that the time had come for them to seek out their brother Yosef and bring him back to their father. With this we can respond to the third anomaly, namely the description of the brothers as being the Achei Yosef. While describing them as Achei Yosef is technically not incorrect, in the context of this pasuk, Bnei Yaakov would have been more appropriate. Rashi's comment is Shehayu mitcharitim b'mechirato. They expressed remorse over the sale of Yosef, and as one, v'natnu libam, to lehit naheg imo be'achva, that from here on they would act to him as if they were the Achei Yosef. They made the commitment to v'liftoto, if they could find him they would redeem him, whatever it may cost. Shortly we will explore that they went even further than the financial commitment. They are willing to sacrifice their lives, if need be, to save Yosef. So what we have here is the second prerequisite for the cherem annulment. The first was an indication from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The second, a willingness on everybody, all the brothers as one, to acknowledge the wrongdoing. And now we await the third component, and that is the willingness of Yosef to formally accept the apology of the brothers and have them return home with the knowledge that he was still alive. Let us now return to the situation with Yosef. The original question was, in light of the fact that there was a mere 4 to 6 day journey between Egypt and Beersheba, why did Yosef not take the trouble to inform his father of his whereabouts? Granted that this might have been quite difficult in the slavery period and the time in which he was incarcerated, but certainly once he was out of prison and elevated to the position of viceroy over Egypt, why did he not take the trouble to either personally go, or if time did not permit, to send an emissary, a shaliach, back to Eretz Canaan with this information? Of all the parties involved, Yosef is fortunate in that he comes out of this entire saga relatively unscathed. The brothers have to live with their guilt. The father, Yaakov, while eventually being reconciled with his son Yosef, has had to live through 22 years of psychological pain and suffering. Yosef certainly had difficulties, but he can now look back and see some method to this madness. When upon revealing himself to his brothers, he states, Lo atem shalachtem oti hena, ki ha'elokim. You may have had your own reasons for doing what you did, but in reality there was a Yad Hashem behind all the events that have happened to me, both the negative and the positive. On the micro level, to keep the entire family alive during the period of the famine, and on the macro level, the fulfillment of the Brit Ben Habatarim, of a period of slavery and servitude in a strange land, but then eventually becoming God's chosen nation. Of course, this luxury was only available to Yosef in hindsight. He would certainly have difficulty in finding a justification during the first 15 years in which he was enslaved in the home of Potiphar and incarcerated in an Egyptian jail. Mid-journey, in other words, from the time he was elevated to the position of viceroy, we would need to find a justification why he did not, at the time, do the right thing and send word back to Canaan. This point is made by Hirsch as he writes, we must attempt to explain Joseph's behavior on the basis of the facts given in our narrative. And then goes on to say, only considerations of compelling necessity could have caused Yosef to behave in a manner that otherwise would appear to be senseless chicanery. To suspect Yosef of stooping to this level of petty chicanery and vengeful behavior is not tenable, if not merely because of his moral character, then certainly because of his intelligence, which no one can deny. With this, we can now turn our attention to Yosef and attempt to reconstruct a scenario that would justify his not informing Yaakov for a period of 9 years. The first option, and the most obvious, is that he should have informed his father when he was elevated to the position of viceroy over Egypt. We rejected this option on the basis that he was party to a cherem that could not be broken by any individual before the two conditions were met. 1, agreement from all the brothers, and 2, a sign from God. The second option was when he first meets the brothers And the Chumash goes out of its way to inform us that Vayizkor Yosef et hachalomot asher chalam lahem, that the script foretold in the two dreams was beginning to play itself out. So what we have here is possible consent from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but lacking certainty on account of the fact that Binyamin is not with them as they pay homage to Yosef. So Yosef hatches a plan that would move things along. It starts with his accusation against the brothers as meragli matem, that in addition to the purchase of grain as they claimed, they had a more sinister objective. The third option was when he finally revealed himself to his brothers. He could have quickly dispatched a messenger to Yaakov as to his whereabouts. Instead, he insisted that the brothers be the ones to bring this information to their father. Yosef, with his moral compass intact, realized that this would create insurmountable problems, both for the brothers and for his father. Firstly, the blame game would start as to who said what and who is responsible. More importantly, there was bound to be long-term repercussions and friction between Yaakov and his 10 sons, who firstly created a problem and then stood by as he mourned for a son who was possibly still alive. Yaakov finds a long-lost son, but loses 10 in the process. Consequently, Yosef realized that it was imperative that they be the first to bring the information of Yosef's whereabouts to the father, not he. And it was only after he had put them to the test regarding Binyamin, in which they demonstrated a willingness to sacrifice themselves on Binyamin's behalf, that he could be assured that they had put their petty jealousies behind them and were now truly Achei Yosef,